Good afternoon and welcome to this week's edition of the People Progressing podcast. And today I have a really fantastic person on here, a business leader, a people leader. Muriel Lotto is amazing. And Muriel, what I usually do is just have people explain like where you grew up, what did you like to do as a kid, some of the influences you had in your life growing up, and so forth, and just kind of take it from there. So why don't you explain, where you grew up? I know this is very interesting. It's very interesting for me where you grew up and what you've done and so forth.
First of all, hi, Joe, and nice to be here with you. So I'm going to try and give you the somewhat abbreviated version. Otherwise, I think that, we could be here for an entire hour.
Yeah.
But I was born and raised in the south of France in a very beautiful town called Aix-en-Provence. I actually was born in Nice on the French Riviera. That's where my dad is from, even though my dad is Italian. So you could already tell where the story is kind of, already somewhat kind of diverse. But my dad is Italian, my mom is French, although my mom was a Italian teacher. So I had a lot of influences in different cultural kind of influences. Obviously, we spoke different languages. My grandparents on the Italian side spoke two different dialects. So I was introduced at a very young age to a lot of diversity, albeit, within Europe. And then I did my studies in France. I did a business degree. And then when I was in my early 20s, I think I came to realize pretty early on that I had a real interest and a real fascination for global brands and global businesses. And I realized, as a young French woman, my English was pretty poor. And that was in the probably late 80s, early 90s, and before the internet, before any of those things, before mobile phones.
Yeah.
So I went the kind of old-fashioned way and relocated myself to the UK. I applied, I cannot tell you how many jobs I applied to, and I finally managed to get an internship with Nestle in London, or on the south edges of London in a little town called Croydon. And I've joined them as an intern. It was an 18-month program. What I loved about it is that you worked in market research, you worked in analytics, you worked in sales, you worked in marketing for different business units across the business. I went out into the field. I was a field sales rep for a few months. They gave me a car. For the funny story, they actually made me take a driving lesson because obviously I was used to driving on the other side of the
Yeah.
road, and they were giving me a company car, and I think the insurance company insisted that I should take, a couple of driving lessons to make sure that I could actually drive on the other side of the road. But I was a field sales rep for a little while, and then back into kind of, headquarter. And at that point in time, there was an opening for a assistant brand manager, and on a brand that actually is half French, half Italian. And they really wanted somebody who could speak both languages. And guess how many candidates there were? The sum
One.
total of one.
Yeah.
So I actually cut my internship short. I only did 10 out of the 18 months, and I got promoted to a assistant brand manager position. And that was really my first opportunity to get into management, because whilst this was a assistant brand manager position, I had people reporting into me. I had a P&L responsibility, and I was what, 23, 24, something like that. Um, so I felt that at that point in time, it was really important for me to really develop my people skills. And I understood that it's not just the technical knowledge of managing a business, managing a P&L, managing a brand, on and all aspects, not just the marketing communication side of it, because I had full P&L responsibility. So I really need to understand, how does the factory work, and how much does it cost to move product from place A to place B, and what's the cost of raw ingredients, what's happening with energy costs, all of these, different layers, if you want, in a P&L. But and I had learned some of that at business school, and I had learned some of that through my internship. But the one thing they never really teach you in any depth is, how do you inspire people? how do you empower people? Where do you
Mm.
find the right balance between I'm telling you what to do and I'm watching your every move and I'm breathing over your shoulder to make sure you do it the way I would do it, versus I kind of empower you. I set the objective, I set the vision, I set the parameters, I set the success criteria and the KPIs, and then I let you find your own way of achieving that with collaboration, with support, with coaching, with mentorship. And that is something that for me, there was no real training for that. There was no real courses that I could take on, how to do that, at least back in those days. So a lot of it was self-taught, a lot of it was observation, a lot of it was asking a lot of questions. And I think, for me, the start of my kind of career progression, other than the functional expertise, of course, which I continued developing over the years, I think my single biggest motivation for getting out of bed in the morning is inspiring other people to
Wow.
be the best version of
Wow.
themselves, whether it be, in their personal life or in their work life. In actual fact, I'm probably one of the, not the only one, certainly, but I think I was quite early on somebody who really advocated bringing your whole self to work. And I really struggled with the notion of, well, between 9 and 5, I'm one person. And then outside of those hours, I'm somebody else. And for me, I could not comprehend how that would yield the best results for me in either of those worlds. So I think I was very early on somebody who truly advocated for people to bring their whole self to work and for people to um, share with me what was holding them back. And, if they're having problem outside of work, if their mom is sick, if their dog is sick, if their kid is sick, or any other kind of, issues or challenges that they may be facing outside of work, that's going to have a ripple effect in their performance at work. And I really wanted to help them, with both sides and be a whole person and be able to grow and be able to flourish both individually and together as part of a team. And I think that's really been, my mission, my purpose, my motivation, my fire in, how do I help other people? Because in return, I become a better person
Yeah.
too.
Man, we got a lot to go over. This is unbelievable. You got me going already. First, I want to go over this point. I've written some things down. I got to go over these one by one. You went from France to England because you wanted to grow. You wanted to learn more. You wanted to branch out. You wanted to learn a language. You wanted to get better at English. You did all that. And it was such an early age. I think it's so interesting how you had the wherewithal to know that that's what you needed and wanted to do. But that's not an easy move from France, from one country to another country. What was it inside you that pushed you to do that? Or
I
was there
think it,
certain things I'm sorry, was there certain things
no, no.
inside you that were kind of holding you back that you had to push through? Or what was it that pushed you to branch out and go do that?
I think the first thing I would say is I had incredibly open-minded and supportive parents.
Okay.
I think my parents, my dad in particular, was really the one that said, if you don't do it now, when you are in your early 20s, when you don't have the responsibility of a family, where you can pick up and go, and if it doesn't work out, you can move on and do something else. I think my dad was really supportive, encouraging, coaching, and sometimes pushing, me to say, come on, get off the fence. Are you going to do this? And if you are going to do this, what do you need to, from me to make it happen? So I always felt that the risk was not that great. I had a supportive family, and I kept saying to myself, well, what's the worst that can happen? You know, um, of course, consider, and the parenthesis is that I had not, and I had not appreciated. In fact, I had completely underestimated how different the UK was from France, considering that, there's only a very small river between the two.
Yeah.
Um, the cultural change, the cultural shock was immense, not just the language barrier, but the cultural barrier was absolutely immense. And I will tell you that the first 6 months, I just kept saying to myself almost every day, what am I doing here? What have I done? How do I kind of get through this? And then, my approach was take it one day at a time, you know, get some small victories, get some small wins, and really think of it as what can I learn from this experience? How can I grow through the pain of having to adapt, having to open up myself to maybe things that are not coming to me very naturally? And what can I learn and kind of really have that inner motivation and inner fire to say, this is an experience. I don't even need to be super successful initially, as long as I have a long-term vision. So I would try to balance the kind of, hurdles that maybe I had to overcome every day, as well as the wins that I was gaining every day, with ultimately don't lose sight of what is your bigger ambition. Don't lose sight of where you want to be, and kind of praise that trajectory, knowing that it's not a linear path from A to Z. It will meander, and the meandering is part of the beauty of the journey. So for me, that initial decision to move to the UK, knowing that I had the back, my family had my back, I had the backup of
Yeah.
my parents, I had the support emotionally, and physically, and kind of, saying, right, how do you make that move? I felt pretty secure in taking that risk. And I felt that the 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 difference and the contribution that it could make to my longer term objective. And every single time I wavered, and every single time I asked myself, oh, should I go back to France? I reminded myself, wait, where do you want to be in 3 years? Where do you want to be in 5 years? And is this kind of, period of time that you're experiencing right now, even though there may be difficulties, going to take you closer to that? And as long as the answer was yes, I stuck with it. I am, pretty resilient when it comes to taking no, because there is a bigger payoff at the end of it.
That is just awesome. Because you know how many people are out there listening to this, Muriel, that say that are contemplating doing something similar to what you did, but they're not sure if they should. You just gave them the blueprint to how to do that. You gave them a blueprint of I had goals 3 to 5 years out that I
Yeah.
knew that if I kept with my process and I stuck with my process, even though there's going to be some hurdles in there, if I stuck with my process, that bigger goal is out there for me. I just got to keep plugging away. Even when you first moved over there and said, why am I here? Is this the right thing for me? You kept your process going and you kept your goals in mind. And that's amazing story. You just helped so many people right there get over the hump.
And the other thing I
Oh,
would add to that is find people who will support you.
yes,
Find
yes,
people who will cheer you on. Find people who will encourage you and kind of almost, sometimes push you, you know, over the
right,
edge, over the
right,
ledge, to make you take that step. I think if it's not your parents, find other people in your
right.
community, in your group of friends, in, your network. But I think having those two elements, having the vision of where you want to get to, and not losing sight of that, is super important. And then having a network of people to cheer you on when the going gets tough is the other thing that are, for me, these were the two things that really allowed me to take those risks. And then, eventually I moved to Switzerland for a while, then I came back to the UK, and then eventually moved to the US. And I think all of that has always been, you know driven by my determination to get to the goal. Now, of course, the goal keeps moving. It's not like, you achieve a milestone and then you kind of go,
Right.
right, where do I go next? How can I push myself even further? So you constantly have to be in a dynamic process, but you have to have that longer, because It's, whether it's a 18-month goal or a 10-year goal, I think that has to be down to the individual. Um, but I think having something that's a little bit beyond the next day, the next week, or the next month is super important to kind of, create that trajectory for yourself.
Amazing. So I got to ask you this before I forget. You mentioned process. How important was it for you? I have a saying, and I actually have it on hats and shirts that I've put on hats and shirts. Win the process. How important was it for you to stick with and win your process of achieving your goals?
I think for me, the process was kind of a little bit of a safety net, a little bit of it's like a map, right? I see that you've got a mountain in your background. When you're looking to climb a mountain, you have a map of, not only do you have all your equipment, but you have a map that basically tells you, right, this is the path we're going to take. And then when the going gets tough, I've got my rope clipped to my belt, or, I've got my kind of, axe pick or whatever it might be. I've got the crampons that I'm going to need to make that part of the journey. So knowing that you have tools, knowing that you have resources, knowing that you have a map that helps you, plan, and that can be a safety net. Because when you are in a whirlwind of emotions, when the going gets tough and you feel overwhelmed, having those processes, those plans in place is how you kind of settle yourself back down and calm down that anxiety and say, wait, let's remind myself, why am I here? So I used to write. I love writing. So I used to write myself notes. I used to write myself progress reports. I love doing a list of, things I need to do and tick them off. And that ticking kind of exercises is a positive reinforcement. So whatever tools, are working for you, find the ones that give you that positive reinforcement just to yourself. Of course, you can have, your supporters and your cheerleaders and people who are going to pat you on the back and pick you up, when the going gets tough. But I think you also need to find what self motivates you, because you're not always going to be able to rely on other people,
Yeah.
and you're not always going to want to. So first and foremost, you have to find what are the things that get me out of bed in the morning with fire in my belly. And so for me, ticking off to-do list, I still do it to this day. You should see my phone is full of lists. My phone is full of notes because I like writing things down. It helps me clarify my thinking. It helps me organize my thinking. And then it helps me determine milestones and then kind of give myself a little gold star and a little pat on the
There
back
you
to
go.
say, you achieved that milestone today.
Yeah.
So for me, the process, the tools, the resources are really, really important, especially when the going gets tough, and they are a reward to myself in a very small kind of, self-indulgent maybe way.
No, no.
When I'm achieving something, I'm kind of like saying to myself, you did well today. Um, and um and my anthem song, really, I'm going all over the place, but my anthem song is a song by a British singer called Heather Small, called What Have You Done Today to Make You Feel Proud. And that is something that I live by every single day of my life. um if you listen to the lyrics of that song, it's really about overcoming fear and opening yourself up to new opportunities and moving forward and feeling proud of having taken that risk, of having taken that step. And I kind of, close out my day every day by looking back and thinking to myself, what have I done today to make me feel proud? I'm accountable to me first and foremost. And I know that there are some days where the answer is going to be, not that much or not enough. And I know that there are some other days where I'm going to be, actually, I feel really good today. And as long as the balance over time, it's more in the feel great rather than I haven't done enough, then I think that's a positive outcome. And whenever I have days where I kind of, close out the day thinking, could have done better today, or, maybe I did something I'm not very proud of, or maybe I missed an opportunity, or I said something that maybe I did not mean, or I did not mean to say in a certain way. I always ask myself, okay, if I was to be put in that situation again, how would I handle it differently? And I use every single opportunity to grow a little bit. Sometimes it's a 0.1% growth, and I'm okay. I'm okay with a 0.1% growth. And sometimes it's a 10% growth. And I'm okay with that too. And it's not kind of linear. As I said, it's kind of peaks and troughs, but as long as the overall trajectory feels like it's going in the right direction, then I get up in the morning with fire in my belly.
This is unbelievable. This is a master class going on right here. I want to go into this because I think this is really important, Muriel. I don't think people do what you said just a minute ago. Pat themselves on the back enough. Give themselves enough credit. Celebrate their successes. You said that you look at it at the nighttime and you look at some of the successes, you look at some of the growth, you look at some of that stuff, and you even showed it to me. You patted yourself on the
Yep.
back. How important is that in terms of getting us through hard times, getting us more confidence in ourselves to get through the hard times, giving ourselves credit for what we've accomplished? I like to say this. I watch a video with a guy named Kyle Maynard. He climbed Mount Kilimanjaro with no arms or legs. Great video. And he talks in there and he says something really profound. He says, sometimes we look at how far we have to come instead of how far we've actually already came.
Mhm.
And I think that's so important, exactly what you're talking about. Give yourself some credit sometimes. How important is that?
So let me tell you where that came from. So I really, really got interested in mindfulness. Quite a few years ago, I had episodes of incredibly crippling dizzy spells. I literally would be in the meeting and the room would start spinning to the point that I had
Wow.
to hold on to the desk because I felt like I was going to fall over.
Wow.
And it was really debilitating, and it could happen very suddenly. I seemed to have no control over it. After a battery of medical tests, um, it actually came down to being stress related, and that it was a manifestation of stress and anxiety for me. And I really started to think about what are the different ways in which I can approach stress. And I went on a mindfulness retreat. And in that mindfulness retreat, I really embraced, you are going to laugh. I did not read the small print. It was a silent retreat. And when they first told me that, I was freaking out. I was
Yeah.
like, how am I going to be silent for 5 days? Are you kidding me? I just don't know that I can do that. And I got through it. I embraced it. I actually enjoyed it because it gave me time to sort of let everything settle and reflect. And the course was run by a clinical psychologist. So whilst it was a mindfulness retreat and all about meditation, it was actually run by somebody who had a very, very good understanding of the psychological and clinical elements of stress. And all of the people who were there were 12 of us, we all came from backgrounds where the number one thing we said at the very beginning when people asked us why we were there was all about stress management. One of the exercises that we did was imagine a scenario where a friend comes to you, berating himself or herself for all the things that they've done wrong. And, they're really unhappy about themselves. They kind of, chastising themselves, berating themselves, criticizing themselves. As a friend, what do? You put your arms around them and you comfort them. You put your arms around them and you tell them, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. Like, what can I do to help you? And part of the outcome of that exercise was recognizing we are our best friend. We should be our best friend. So when we do something that, maybe we're not very proud of, we should be the one that put our arms around ourselves, comfort ourselves, allow ourselves to say, it's okay. Yeah, I made a mistake. Hey, I'm going to do better next time. And the next chapter within that is being grateful for who we are, being grateful for what we accomplish, being grateful for um, the steps that we take to grow and challenge ourselves. So the two main tenets of that mindfulness retreat were forgiveness and gratefulness. First and foremost, directed at ourselves. Let's forgive ourselves for our mistakes and let's thank ourselves for the accomplishments that we make. And then, of course, that also needs to be turned outwards to other people. But if you cannot forgive yourself, it's very hard to forgive other people too, because you carry that within you. And if you cannot thank yourself and be grateful for you, it's also harder to give it to other people without feeling that you're sacrificing. And that balance of forgiveness and gratefulness to be in harmony with yourself and therefore in harmony with the world and everybody else around you, for me, were incredibly powerful and liberating um, tools, if you want, that I have carried with me ever since. And I am very, very mindful in how I approach situations, in how I approach my own tensions. It doesn't mean that I don't get stressed. It doesn't mean that I don't get anxious, but I'm a lot better. One, at forgiving myself, two, at patting myself on the back, and three, at having a little bit of distance, sitting with those feelings, sitting with those manifestation of my stress and anxiety, because I know I'm going to be okay.
Yeah, man, I, this is unbelievable. I got to go to this one next. I'm writing down so many notes. Growth. You went back. I'm going to go all the way back to your first story when you talked about interning at Nestle and they had you doing so many different jobs. The look on your face when you were talking about that, you just got like excited. And the reason I wrote this down is because I saw that little extra excitement in you when you were talking about doing the different jobs that you had, in terms of they gave you the opportunity to learn and grow so much because they put you in different positions.
Yes.
The growth mindset, how important is that for everyone to have that kind of a growth mindset where they get excited about learning and growing with new things?
And for me, that's the reason why I get out of bed every morning. Like I get out of bed every day thinking to myself, what am I going to learn today? How am I going to, discover something either about myself or about somebody else? How am I going to help someone, whether it's a business, whether it's a person, whether it's my children, whether it's my friends, how am I going to be in a position where I'm taken a little bit outside of my comfort zone. I like to live on the edge of my comfort zone, um, and in a space where I can truly grow and um, and open my mind to new possibilities. And I always say to people, I have very strong opinions. One thing that everybody will say about me is I have very strong opinions. First of all, I have opinions about everything. You can ask me a question about any topic, I will have an opinion. Sometimes I will have a strong opinion. But the other side of that coin is I hold my opinions lightly. And what I mean by that is I don't assume I'm right. I don't assume I know everything. I don't assume my opinion is the only opinion. I don't assume my opinion prevails. I look at it and say, I have an opinion. It's a starting point. That's all it is. It's a starting point.
Wow. Yeah.
And then I ask myself, I wonder if anybody has a different opinion from mine, because that's more interesting than
Yeah.
somebody who has the same opinion as me. I look for people on purpose. And that might be through podcasts, that might be through interactions, that might be through reading books, that might be through attending webinars. I look for people who have a different opinion from mine. And the reason why I look for that is because that can usually enrich and help me grow. If I just talk to people who think the same as me,
Yeah.
we're just going to nod, look at each other. We're going to feel good. Don't get me wrong. It feels super good to talk to somebody who says, "Oh my God, you're so right, Muriel." But ultimately, there's always a little bit of a question at the back of my mind that says, I wonder if there are any other opinions out there. I wonder what I can learn from the other opinions. I wonder whether if I talk to somebody who has a completely different opinion from me, will I change my mind? Will I have a different opinion? Will I agree with that person? What have I missed? What do I not know? And for me, that inquisitiveness is really my driving force. I am just by nature super, super inquisitive. I'm always the one who says, why? And why now? And why not? And what else? And I go out of my way to seek people who can disagree with me. And no, I don't mean disagree in an argumentative way. I
Yeah.
don't like anybody to try and change my mind because they think they're right. I like to meet people who have a different opinion from me and who are open to discussing this, who are open to um, having a debate, but not because they're trying to convince me I'm wrong, because we are both seeking a greater answer that can come out of both of our opinions. And sometimes, you might just walk away and say, well, we have to agree to disagree on that one.
Yeah.
And I approach business solving problems in the same way. I always try to get to a place where I have one or sometimes more than one hypothesis as to why this is happening. Why are we not acquiring more customers? Why are customers not staying with us? Why are product reviews going down? Why are, our employees leaving? All of these different questions that a business may be facing. And I try to get to a point where I may have one or two or three hypotheses as to why any single one of these events might be happening. But they just that, a hypothesis. They're not an answer. They're just a starting point. And then I go out of my way to say, how can I validate or invalidate or rephrase or reframe the hypothesis or the challenge? So, and I'm very, very inclusive in how I do that.
Yeah.
Because I know that if I'm on my own, I'm in my own lane. I can't possibly get to a different answer all by myself. That's very, very difficult to do. So I like to surround myself with other people, preferably people who have a different perspective, a different opinion, a different hypothesis, a different set of data. And I open up and I say, okay, how are we collectively going to approach this where all of these different perspectives, all of these different data points can come together to give us either a different hypothesis or a better hypothesis or a better answer or a better path to solving this, so that the collective of differences of opinion, that's the reason why I value diversity of thinking above everything else. And with that, people who are inquisitive by nature, because I need people to come to the table not saying, I've got the answer to this. I need people to come to the table and say, could be, and I have a few questions that could help us open this up even further. So the process is very iterative by nature. It's like sprints. I think I was doing agile before agile was a word,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I operate in sprints, right? Open up, close down, until you get to a place where it's worth testing and putting this into the real world to see, right, are we seeing a change in trajectory, yes or no? And if we're not, let's go back into iterating quickly. So I think my way of thinking um, is this kind of iterative, open, and collaborative approach, which I think is why I'm so fascinated by how people think. I'm actually not that interested. It's going to sound maybe a little bit derogatory, but I don't mean that in that way. I'm not that interested in what people think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a great
People
way to
can
put
think.
it.
People can think whatever they want.
Right.
I'm good with all of it. I'm pretty non-judgmental and open, generally in life. What I'm really, really interested in is how people think. How do people connect the dots? How do people, get to a hypothesis? How do people get to a conclusion? How do people get to a belief? And what can I learn from that? How can we, through the interactions that we're having, the exchange that we're having, both grow? Because my intent is always for both of us to grow independently and together. I cannot repeat that enough. So for me, how people think is really where I go pretty deep in how I how I support, how I lead, how I mentor, how I coach, how I inspire a team. I'm really interested in how people think. And that really is my leadership model.
I love it. And I want to dive into this now. Um, wow. Uh, this is amazing. I want to dive into this because you said it way back. You said uh, you really learned some leadership stuff and you really figured out that you really enjoy inspiring people and empowering people. I believe this. I think it's hard to motivate people, or it's a challenge to motivate people, but I do think it's easy to inspire people to motivate themselves. And I think part of the job of a leader is to inspire their people and to empower their people. We're on the 100% on the same page there. Where did that come from with you? Where did that leadership trait or leadership style formulate within you to inspire and empower people?
So I think it comes from two places. One, I go back to my parents. I think that my parents' style of bringing me up and raising me and my younger sister was not to give us answers, but to help us find our own answers. So, you know, um, uh, if as a child I ever asked, I can't remember if I did, but if I did, if I asked, why is the sky blue? Instead of giving me an answer as to why the sky is blue, my parents would say, well, why do you think the sky is blue? What are all the ways in which we could explain why the sky is blue? And, it could range from, God gets up every morning and paints it blue,
Yeah.
all the way to a very scientific, explanation, or, magical, or, whatever it might be. And I think that helping people ask themselves the right questions, helping people inspire themselves and motivate themselves, not by giving them an answer, but by helping them find their own path and motivation. It's something that I learned from my parents' way of raising me up. And then the other thing that I learned later on in life is I had a boss and a mentor, a guy called Gordon. If he ever listens to this, Gordon, I still love you. Um, who taught me very, very early on that I can't be perfect at everything. And this is something that I think, especially women, um, are raised to believe they've got to be perfect. You've got to be the perfect wife. You've got to be the perfect mother. You've got to be, the perfect daughter. You've got to be the perfect sister. There's a very, very good TED talk around girls are raised to be perfect and boys are raised to be brave. And this notion that women in society have to be perfect. We've always got to have our hair made up and, our
Yeah.
makeup perfect and wear the nice outfits and, have our nails done and wear heels and, all of these different kind of things. And it's a relatively superficial, but actually it affects us very, very deeply in terms of how we see ourselves. And I think as a woman in the business world, I kind of, had the belief, subconsciously, by the way, I had the belief that I needed to be good at everything. Otherwise, I was going to be seen as less
Okay.
than capable, less than successful, less than promotable, Um, so I operated on, the principle, the underlying principle that whatever I did, I could not fail. And that fear of failure was actually very, very difficult to manage. Hence the reason why I felt a lot of stress and anxiety. And this boss of mine, one day we were having a coaching conversation, and he said to me, have you considered that maybe a better path for you? Because I was talking about, it's so hard to try and be perfect at everything, every day, every hour, in every aspect of my life. It's exhausting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And quite frankly, it doesn't very often yield to good results. So you end up being good, average, okay at most things. You cannot be great at everything. It's just not possible. So Gordon kind of, was quoting me on this and was telling me, what if you pick 3 or 4 things that you really want to be great, and then make sure you surround yourself by people who are good at the other things that you're not so good at. And maybe these are the things that they're great at. So my entire kind of, inspiration and kind of coaching leadership model has been around, let's find together the 3 or 4 things that you are going to be outstanding at. That everybody's going to say, oh my God, if I have this problem and I need this skill, bam, Joe is the person I'm going to for that.
Yeah.
I know exactly what are Joe's kind of extraordinary spikes. And there will be somebody else in the team where that has other spikes. And, I will turn to them, for those. And collectively, all of this makes us as a team an extraordinary team
Right.
rather than trying to have everybody compete at trying to be good at everything and ultimately not being, you know, good at many of them. So for me, the whole kind of model of saying, what are the 3 or 4, maybe 5 maximum things that you are going to be excellent at? And I'm going to support you and I'm going to coach you and I'm going to mentor you and I'm going to make sure you are celebrated and recognized for those, 3 to 5 things has been a very, very different approach to being successful. And I know initially I talked about, this was really important for me as a woman, trying to be perfect in everything. But it actually became for me a broader coaching model because when I help people identify the 3 to 5 things that they are going to be amazing at, they become self-motivated.
Yeah.
And I no longer need I mean, I need to reward them. I want to reward them and encourage them and, you know, but I no longer need to help them motivate, themselves because they are inspired to do their best work because it taps into their best
Right.
competencies, skills, and capabilities. And that becomes the motivation in and of itself.
Right. And they have passion for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They get out with fire in their belly.
Right. I call it the light bulb moment. How's a leader can I turn on the light bulbs of my people
Right.
and get them inspired to do that? And once they get that, they gain the confidence. And part of that is empowering them, and part of that is challenging them. Because if I don't challenge the people that I lead, I'm telling them in a not directly telling them, but I'm telling them if I never challenge them that I don't think you can do any of this stuff. So I'm never going to challenge you to do it.
Right.
And we challenge them, we coach them. I call it CPC. You coach them, you practice it, and then you challenge it. And the challenge part is the part that gets the light bulb to go on. And you believe in your people, and believing in your people is empowering your people. Man, this is amazing. I'm going to say something here, and I just want you to comment on it really quick. You have in your LinkedIn profile, it says, I'm a senior marketing executive and thought leader. I solve business problems through the power of marketing to deliver sustainable growth. Nothing gives me greater satisfaction than bringing fresh ideas to brands and teams to deliver results. I'm a full funnel, full stack performance and growth marketer with a holistic view of customer acquisition and retention. What does that mean? It inspires me to read it. It's different from other things that I read. It
Right.
shows me that you're unique in what you do. Explain the uniqueness of that.
The uniqueness of that, at least for me, I don't know how unique it is, to be honest, but I can only be me and I can only try and be, as I said, the best version of me, is I think that inquisitiveness, that resilience, that drive to inspire teams at, being the best that they can be is allows me to think out of the box. I think one of the things that I'm probably really, really good at, I had a boss, a long time ago saying, I see patterns where others only see chaos. So for me, I like to take very desperate and seemingly unrelated data points, whether those are qualitative, anecdotal, or whether these are quantitative, kind of really rooted in deep analytics. I like to take all of these different data points and information points and bring them together to come up with something unexpected, something, but not unexpected for the sake of it, unexpected because it can unleash growth, growth in an individual, growth in a business, growth in a team, growth in customer base, whatever that might be. So for me, I use all of the tools, all of the techniques of over 30 years of experience in marketing, managing P&Ls and managing teams to really try and find a fresh angle. What, you know, in bringing all of these information and people together, how can we come up with something that feels, I call it springy. It's like a little bit like when you're trying to do a somersault. The first thing you do is you step on a springboard that kind of wow really makes you jump 5 times higher than you would normally if you just hit the ground. And what I'm trying to find is that springboard. Is how do I find that springboard from which we can really catapult ourselves individually, collectively as a business, you know, to something much, much greater and get that multiplier effect is really where my kind of, metaphor comes from.
So you mentioned growth again. It's all based on helping people grow. It's all
Yes.
based on helping turn that light bulb on. This is I always tell people as a leader, what I want to try to do is get people to do things that they didn't think they could have, that they could do, that they didn't think they had the ability to do, but I knew they had the ability to do, to get that light bulb to turn on. And that's how you run your business to help people grow their business. It's all service based on them growing as people first, and then their business will grow second. Um, this is amazing, Muriel. I have, we've almost gone a whole hour already. I don't know if you
I
realize that.
know.
I don't know if you've been keeping track. I have 3 questions. I wrote a book called The 3 Ps: Finding Your Purpose, Perspective, and Passion. And I ask every guest I have on my show those 3 questions. What's your purpose in life first?
My purpose in life is to help as many people as I can be the best version of themselves that they can be.
Awesome. And I skip over perspective. I'll get to that in a second. What's your passion in life?
My passion in life is energy. I give a lot of energy and I thrive on igniting people's energy. And that's what I get my kind of, passion from, is the exchange of energy that can happen when two people or two groups of people or me and a group of people come together and kind of, spark starts to, kind of come out of the discussion or the interaction, but I'm all about energy.
I love it. So I say purpose equals passion, and passion equals purpose in a lot of people. And the thing that the glue that holds those two together is your perspective on life. Now things come at us to try to take us out of our perspective, the noise, the crap. But what is your perspective on life that holds your purpose and passion together?
That there is not enough kindness in the world, and therefore kindness is how I is where I put my energy to help other people. I feel that um my number one perspective is everybody needs help, and everybody can do with a friend, and everybody can do with a cheerleader. And I want to be one of those people, not the only person for sure, but I want to be one of those people who puts goodness, kindness, compassion, and positive energy, positive intent out into the world to help myself and help others.
Man, you want to be the person that pats others on the back.
Yes.
You are amazing. This has been phenomenal. Um, how can people get a hold of you if they want to hire you to help so you can help them with their business or whatever? I mean, how do people get a hold of you to get more of you?
So people can either find me on LinkedIn, Muriel Lotto, Lotto. That's very easy. The other thing that people can do is I belong to a collective of chief marketing officers where we have a shared mission, vision, and ambition to help businesses grow. We are called the CMO Syndicates, and you can find us at www.cmosyndicate.com. And this is an awesome group of like-minded people who have come together. There's 10 of us. So we're not a very big group, but we are growing very fast. And we're a group of people who share a passion for helping businesses, growth. We all ex, CMOs in very big organizations, and we just love to help people and help companies.
Muriel, I want to thank you for coming on. This has been a master class in leadership, in self-motivation, motivating others, um, resiliency. There's so many times along your journey, especially when you first started, when you even said it, when you first crossed the river and went into England, and for the first 6 months, there's days after days where you're saying, why did I do this? And
Right.
you were resilient and you persisted and you kept going and you kept your eye on the prize. And just a master class on how to be successful in life, in terms of just being successful in enjoying life and getting the most out of life and serving others. And I just want to thank you for coming on. This has been amazing. I really
Oh, thanks,
appreciate it.
Joe. The only thing I would say is that I am very, very grateful. I just keep coming back to that forgiveness and
Yeah,
gratefulness. And
yeah.
I am very, very grateful for the journey that I've been on, for the place I'm in life, today, and for meeting wonderful people like you who support me, who cheer me on, who value who I am, and who are willing to give me opportunities like this one to come and talk to you for an hour about what I believe in. I'm extremely grateful. Thank you.
Yeah, we could have gone. We might have to do episode 2. So I think that's going to be in the works. I say that to a lot of people because I have so many amazing people on here. But man, alive, was that amazing. I want to thank all of you for listening to the People Progressing podcast. Please get on and share it. We're trying to grow this and subscribe and do whatever you do. I'm not real sure how all that works. I just want to keep growing this. I want as many people to listen to these stories, get inspired from these stories as possible. If you ever need me to come out and speak to your group or whatever, I'd love to do that too as well. So thank you so much. Have a great week, all of you. And please, please, please keep progressing. Thank you.